This Leafs prospect has a bright future ahead. We'll discuss this and much more coming up on this episode of Hattrick HQ. Hi, I'm your host KC, alongside my co-host Mark Pye, and welcome back to Hattrick HQ. With that said, let's get right into the main topic of this video, which is the Leafs have a young star in the making. And if you were tuned into NHL Twitter over the last couple days, you would have seen that the NHL Network released their top 50 prospect list. And Matthew Knies, left wing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, was ranked number 14th. Ranked over top picks like Shane Wright, David Reinbacher, Ryan Leonard, Dustin Wolf, and Lane Hudson, just to name a few. I'm going to throw to you here, Mark. What do you think about Matthew Knies being placed so high up in this list?
I think a big thing with this is you look at a guy like Matthew Knies who has this NHL experience at this point. He played a few games at the end of the regular season for the Leafs, came into the playoffs and played a few games. And a lot of the names you kind of listed are guys just coming out of the juniors. A guy like Shane Wright who hasn't really got his foot fully in with the Kraken yet. He did play some AHL time and he did go back to the minors. But I think a guy like this, he might be hopping up in the rankings due to having this experience, coming in, proving himself. He played in big moments in the playoffs, and I think it's a fair ranking for him.
Yeah, I'd have to agree on that. I think it's just nice seeing a second round draft pick being so high up in a top prospect list, and when he's playing with names like Matthews and Nylander and Marner, he's obviously going to play good because he's got some of the best players in the world playing with him. We're going to take a look at his stats here now. Last year in the regular season, only played 3 games with 1 point, and then in the playoffs, obviously he played really well for Toronto last year. 4 points in 7 games. But during his time in the University of Minnesota, obviously he had 42 points in 42 games and 33 points in 33 games. So a point per game player throughout his career in his junior university years. And they say that Knies is a big body power winger who has added extra pace to his game this season. He's quicker to open space and tracks up and down the ice efficiently. The majority of his offense comes from between the hash marks and around the crease in the offensive zone. I know we've seen this from Knies when he played in the playoffs last year. He parks his big body in front of the net and just looks for a tip. They also go on to say in this article that Knies is a great penalty killer. He's great at extending plays along the board, and he's just a great three-zone player. And they also go on to say here that he has NHL comparisons of Chris Kreider, which is a very big comparison to have. What do you think, Mark, about him being compared to a name like Chris Kreider?
I mean, we've seen Chris Kreider have a huge season. He's a guy that can put up 20, 30 goals. He can dictate the pace of the games. Coming into the league, Knies was kind of a bit slower. That was a big problem with his skating. But, you've seen a guy like Michael Bunting put up 20 goals consistency on the top line. So I think a guy like this, you slot him in the top line. You have one of the elite playmakers in Marner. You have a guy creating space for you in Matthews. I just think this kid's going to be incredible. Might be a little biased, but I think 14 is perfect for him. Like it said in the thing, he's a big body, which the Leafs need. He's strong on his game, a good penalty killer, and honestly, I think he's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and even as a Habs fan here, I have to agree with you. I think Matthew Knies is a great player. I think the one big thing about him right now is he fills the hole that Toronto has needed. I think Toronto has needed a big power forward in their lineup that can go out there every night and lay the body and can kill the penalties when needed. And I think they have this in Matthew Knies. I think this kid has a very bright future, and I just hope he has a good year. I just love when like a second round pick comes up and he's playing top line with Matthews and Nylander. It's just going to be incredible to see this year what he can do. Hopefully he can pot a few goals. I'd like to see him do good, obviously. With comparisons to Chris Kreider, that's just huge. As long as he don't take out goalies, he'll be fine.
Yeah, I think a guy like Shane Doan, too. I mean, the Leafs just added him to the organization. With Knies growing up in Arizona, he looked up to a guy like that. And I think that's a great comparison there, too, is a guy like Shane Doan that can be your leader. He's a big body, he can still pot goals and do pretty much everything on the ice.
Yeah, and that's one thing about Toronto too is they have a great development system, great coaching staff to help these young players kind of come in and get adjusted to the league really quickly. And I think this year's Toronto team, they added the holes that they needed. They added like a Ryan Reeves type player on the fourth line, and then they added a same type of player, or not added, but they have Matthew Nyes there. Kind of like a Ryan Reeves player that kind of scores more goals and gets more points. He's not going to be the guy who goes out there and drops the gloves every night, but he's going to go out there. He's going to grind it out in the corners, and he's just got grit, and I think that's what the Toronto Maple Leafs team needs to be successful.
I completely agree.
Well, we're also going to go on to talk about Nicholas Robertson in this video. I think this guy has a great future in Toronto. Obviously, coming off a bad injury last season. Mark, what do you think about Nick Robertson in Toronto with his time in Toronto?
Nick Robinson with Toronto, I mean, he's been there since he was 18 or 19. He can never really get his foot in every time it seems like he's getting that next step in his game and, producing an injury happens, which is a really big killer when you get momentum going. But he's a guy that's kind of my dark horse going into the season. If we can get a healthy season out of him, as I've said previously, Matthews has came out and said that he has the best shot on the team. And I mean, you have a guy like Austin Matthews saying that obviously that's a lot of praise coming from that. But I think he's a guy that can come in a healthy season. If he can pop 20 goals in your third line, even slot him up with a Nylander and Tavares if you wanted to run that as your second line, I think it'd be incredible. And I think between Nyes and Robertson, it's a bright future for both the guys. And I think they're going to be big adds to the Toronto Maple Leafs this coming season.
Yeah, I have to agree, and I'm going to talk about him again here on the channel. If you put him on the third line with Max Domi, I think Nick Robertson is going to have a great year this year. Obviously, Max Domi is a great playmaker. You slot him in on that third line, I think, like you said, I think he at least pots 20 this year. If hopefully he can stay healthy, so we can see that happen, because the Leafs got a lot of good young guys coming up for a team who has been a contender, a playoff contender for a numerous amount of years. They've used their scouting to the best of their ability by getting these second round pick type of players like Matthew Nyes that can come up and play on the top line in the league. And I feel like if the Toronto Maple Leafs weren't so deep at that right wing position, that Nick Robertson could even make his way up to the second or first line. But it all depends on the Nylander situation as well, because if Nylander's gone, I think if they trade him or whatever happens throughout the season, I think that Nick Robertson could come up and fill that role.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Well, guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like down below and smash that subscribe button. We're trying to hit 250 subscribers before the season starts. We love pumping these content videos out to you. So make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment down below on what you think of Matthew Nyes and Nick Robertson. Obviously, these guys are the future of the Leafs. They already do have some young guys there. Hopefully that they can get Matthews extended and that whole drama can be over and the Leafs can just take off from there. But I've been Casey alongside my co-host Mark Pye. Thanks for watching. Keep your stick on the ice.